Right, we're live now. Welcome everyone to the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting on the 14th of March. Shall we start with apologies? No apologies. Declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. No urgent business. Is anyone in the public forum? Excellent. That takes us to receiving the minutes of the meeting of March. Move Brian, second Bruce G. One. Bruce one. Point of order, sorry.
Is that as far as you can count?
Any corrections? All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Carried. That takes us to Christina's report, the Health and Safety Risk and Major Projects report. There is a page being handed, page 27, and that has been handed out. Peter's handing out in a page that's being adjusted. Welcome, Christina.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you. I'm happy to take my report if you take any actions. We're really happy with the progress we've made on page 20 with the outstanding 3 waters issues, which are higher risk area, so that's where we place most focus on at the moment, so happy with that. We've seen an increase in our reports, but of course we've increased our staffing. We've also increased the staff that we have in the health and safety team, so that means that we're getting out there a bit more, so we're finding out what's going on in the business more as well. We also have an easier way of reporting, so it's expected to see that we would have that increase because we're starting to know more about what's going on out there. Still, most of our reports are at that low level.
Stone Health and Safety. Yep. Any questions?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment that how you have the top 3 improvement priorities, right, and yet the topics are over quite a different range. So someone out in the front office, their priority isn't going to be heights or something like that. So it just puzzles me that you can get down to 3 when it's such a large and varying scope depending on which department you work in.
Christina.
Yeah, we have data that says what each specific team, their top 3s are. So we know across the business what the top 3 are. But
So you have the top 3 for each one?
Department, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then it's specific for them, and then we know where we can put our focus for that specific team. Because like you're saying, there's no point in talking about confined spaces or fires with this, the office stuff. Yeah. But it's important that we have that data because then we know where we place our focus with each team. Yeah, that was a really good and interesting survey, or pieces of information that we could gather so we can provide better service to our teams. We've got a lot of work to do on that now that we have that data, but at least we have a starting point.
Wayne.
Through the chair, thanks Christina. Just on page 22 regarding the number of reports, is it your feeling that more things are being reported due to the higher number of staff, or is it relative to the number of staff, or is it just more stuff being reported? This is quite an increase.
It is. Yeah, like I said, we have more visibility across our teams more because this time last year it was just me, so it was quite hard to get out there. We're getting more information from our teams by attending their team meetings. So what's going on? We get them to start reporting more by showing them how to report, and it's just and we've made it easier for them to report. So if it's in your face, if I'm in your face, then it's making it easy for us to know about these things.
So you don't have a concern with that number as such, it's just better reporting, you feel?
Better reporting, it's us knowing, we want to see the reports coming through. If we are concerned about something, we will raise it with you.
Thank you.
It's interesting, page 22 you said, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so I read that and looked at it and thought we were worse than rather better. And what I focused on was the massive drop in the low level reports, 89% last year and 57%. And my understanding of the way the health and safety works is it's the culture of reporting where you report the trips and before they become falls and things like that. That culture of reporting leads to a lot of low ones, but then you have a better culture when it comes to the big ones. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that reporting is subjective as well. So we're putting more. We are asking each department to prioritise or say where they think that their reports sit. So they will say that this is a high risk report. Where I might say it's medium or low. So that's something we are testing at the moment, and we will refine as we go along, and as we work with each team to understand what is actually a high risk report.
John.
Thank you. Look, I've just got a quick question. On top of page 24, on your dashboard continue, under actions, it looks like this sentence sort of stops without the end of it being there. It says financial negotiations still in, and then stops.
Okay, thank you. I'll just take better notice of that next time.
You know what was supposed to come after that? 'Cause it would be...
So we're still working, we're still having the negotiation. At the time of writing this, we were still talking with a key contractor about
The financial negotiations still in negotiation phase.
We haven't signed the contract or articulation in its final form yet.
That's right, it's in another report. Yeah, right, so it was, just looked to me like the sentence stopped mid.
It is.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Michelle.
For you, well done, Christina. I know dealing with St John and health and safety and getting the aspects through the different divisions is really hard. So good on you for doing that. The bottom of page 24, that processes that we've stopped the mapping tool. Have we brought something else in to help with that rather than using that tool?
Not in a process mapping way, but Clutha Stars asks each team to be putting processes in place. So that is the replacement. And additionally, we're monitoring that teams are putting the processes in place. So we have less visibility, but we're asking the teams to have more responsibility of having those processes in place. And that's where like the activity or the heads of departments need to make sure that they are there. And then my role is to also verify that those things are in place as well.
Thank you.
But through Mr Chairman, Christina, we do have a replacement process tool that you're using.
Safety culture can do everything, but it is completely different to ProMap. But it is a solution that we can use. We're using it in the Three Waters department, but it won't be suitable for like HR processes. And it might not be suitable for other things, but there is, I could say yes, there is a replacement. We just need to get it started properly.
Page 21, we've got a big long green line that says not chosen. The it's all water. Is that part of the process? Change that?
Like I said, we're putting more responsibility on the teams to be letting us know whether they are. Yeah. And
Just to confirm for that one though, there was no ability for the water team to choose what type it was, so that's an upgrade. We need to do some work on the process so they can give that extra information.
Thank you, Jules.
and our new system makes it easier for them to be able to do that.
Okay. Critical risk. Major projects, category A.
This is where there's been an amendment to the LTP comments. So Peter is here and he can support if there's any questions. Otherwise, he has a paper in the corporate policy. And he'll be talking more thoroughly into the LTP.
Brian.
Can I just get a clarification why Rosebank subdivision isn't in category A?
Probably because we came up with these categories as a team last year, and then these are the ones that we've just carried on with. So it goes through to July.
Should it be that a major project like that should be? You know?
That's where this group will decide
Council.
during council. So if that was a project that we wanted to report more, be added to the category A's, then
I
that's
think,
where it
well,
will be added. Yeah.
For me, I do think it should be. It's a major project. It's well underway, and probably until this one is PCG, we're focused on it for a long time.
Yeah, so I can't recall through you, Mr. Chairman, council approves the project category A list at the start of each financial year, and so you would have approved this particular list. And we would have discussions at the time, and that I can't recall whether it was, if it was decided to be in, it should be in, but obviously hasn't been put in. And that without going back and checking. But the other side of it, of course, when you talk about risk, that project has an increased risk mitigation through the PCG. So the whole point of the PCG was we don't do that for every category A. This is the project control group. We don't do that for every category A matter, and that gives us more timely. Yeah, albeit we had Christmas. The whole point is it's more timely approach to risk for that particular project because it's a short-term project.
So do you think it should be there?
At this time in the project, no. It could have been.
They aren't prioritised. That's just the 12 that are on the category. That number one isn't the top priority.
No.
Risk? No. Okay.
Just sorry through you, Mr. Chairman, there is a further category A report this afternoon in the standing agendas as well, so that's going to be the regular one that goes through standing committees. So just noting that that's coming up later on as well.
So you've been handed out this LTP one. It essentially says that, correct me if I'm wrong, that you could be late on delivering your annual report, and the LTP and provisions have been made for that with the auditors in your own process. I've in other circumstances, not with reforms and stuff, I've been working for councils where this has happened without the legislation, just with the the existing legislation, and it's generally not a problem until you get to the point where you can't invoice your first invoice of rates, and then it becomes a serious problem because you can only invoice last year's or this current year's rates. Of course, with inflation and everything, that leaves you with a big hole, and then your community gets much bigger bills in the next three installments. So
It's not happening though, is it, Shay? Even though we're delaying by 2 weeks, we can still meet the postal and the what have you. So we're squeezing weeks, not months.
Through you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
and that's the same.
we
yeah,
worked backwards from when we needed to have it done to meet the first rates instalment.
That's the same timetable was similar to this other council that I was working on. Cool.
It's the reasoning around the delays that council's got to be aware of. That's where the true risk lies.
Alison?
I'm looking at page 28 and Milton Main Street group of projects where it's high, paper going to council for additional funding. Well, we've just had the Milton Main Street PCG meeting. There was no indication there that there was to be more funding required. So I'm probably questioning.
I was questioning and told you. That's the last time I'll show you.
So,
Sorry, just to clarify, I think that there's actually a couple of stages of the Milton Main Street project. The first stage is the utilities and the undergrounding. We're absolutely on track and on budget for that. We expect that the remainder of the budget will not be sufficient to do the balance of the work that we originally had talked about. So that will have to come back for consideration of council as to what actually is the scope of the Main Street upgrade project. Once when we know what the cost estimates are, we'll come back to you, and then you can say, we're going to stick to our budget, we'll rein the scope in, or we want to do a little bit more. So that's actually the actual streetscape works that's flanking at risk for.
This will fit into the LTP calculations.
We're hoping to have it in time for the decision process. It will not be in time for consultation. But the indication on all of the costs to date is that, well, based on the estimates even a couple of years ago, we do not have enough money left in the budget to do stages 1 and 2 of the Main Street project. So that needs to come back to council for consideration.
but doesn't it need to be discussed as part of the long-term plan? Otherwise, it's really pushed out into next year's annual plan.
Potentially, but unfortunately at this stage we don't have those cost estimates to bring back to you. So we can't give you an idea of what those projected costs are. The Rough and Milne are working on them right now, and as soon as we have them available, we'll be bringing them back to council.
But they're significant.
They're definitely, at this stage, we don't think there'll be enough to do stages 1 and 2, but we need that confirmed by the cost estimates.
Not even enough for stage 1, right?
Well, I mean, well, through you, Mr. Chairman, that you've always been part of that process where it's been contracting the job to meet the budget. And then the last time we were talking about that wider streetscape was where we picked up that, we need to get those final costs, and there'll be additional costs if you're going to particular, go for a particular pathway down. That was always going to be the case. So what you've been seeing, this is a risk of a group of projects. So you had the PCG this morning around Milton Main Street upgrade. That's going well, as we heard. So that's good news in that sense. But we've always still got what are we going to do with the rest of the streetscape upgrade, right? And so those are decisions that will need to be taken, funding decisions, budget decisions, when we get the information around what those costs might be.
Thank you.
Right, the recommendation is on page 17 that we received the report. Moved Gaynor, seconded Michelle. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you, Christina. And that takes us to page
Hang on, we're just.
32.
Can I go back one? To page 29 and the critical on Mount Coe. I mean, we can't have a critical and not actually discuss what the process is from the end.
I don't think the criticals have changed.
It has been critical for a while, but yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the issue, there's not much to debate, Mr. Chairman, because we're highlighting the risks, which, aren't going to get resolved until we get the information. Because we talk about, at the end of the day, it would make sense, wouldn't it, that before you actually commit the dollars for the major replacement, that many millions of dollars, that you look at the operating environment and the legislative environment, and you make the call, yes, it's time to go, or actually no, now in the environment, it's actually more cost effective to do a different thing. So there's the trigger point in here that says, and it's a critical risk, because if we didn't do that, we would just plough ahead and have no regard and just carry on with the project. But there's got to be that critical path sort of decision point that says, before you push that button, at the end of the day, is it more economical to proceed, or is it more economical to stop and actually do a different method?
Chris?
Just see we're on critical risks. I see on the Taylor Park cabins, that's reputational risk, but it's also financial risk, because at the moment we've already spent $712,000 on it, that if we do decide to go one certain way, well, it's only going to cost more and it's down the drain, and that's a pretty dear lesson to be learned.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, but if you're equating 712,000, I'm assuming that's the cost of the cabins as well as any services costs.
It's still a wee bit more than petty change, unless you're spending on the up.
Yeah, so there's two things though, Mr. Chairman. One is the cost of the cabins that we are paying for is at cost, which is not market value of the cabins. So, because we're not paying for labour or anything like that. So, council, should be in a solid position if they want to do something else with the cabins to recover the funds that have been paid. In terms of underground services, the cost of the underground services, that would come out of the camping ground reserves that we have, and the reserves have been made up from sales that we've achieved and the profits we've made or built up from sale of the 3 previous campgrounds. So it's all part of the same campground unit. So there was no risk associated to rates with that.
So what is the cost of materials for the cabins then?
Well, I haven't got it in my mind at the moment, but there is.
So for 4 cabins, you're saying it could be, well, I've looked at the cabins. I don't know how much I'd pay for materials on that. It certainly wouldn't be $500,000.
So rather than trying to solve this problem in a risk meeting, we should have a financial risk element to this report for the Taylor Park cabins. That's where you started from. Yep. Brian?
Until we vote this afternoon, we don't know what direction it is, but we still have the intrinsic value of the cabins, whether they're sitting on Taylor Park or somewhere else. It's quite obvious that the underground infrastructure, if Milton chooses that that's a sunken cost that we lose, so be it. Just on page 29, further to the Mount Killy, isn't it, we don't make the decision on Mount Killy until 2027, is that correct? Yeah, it's not imminent, it's in our 10-year plan. It was take out 3 waters on Mount Killy and our LTP costs have evaporated. But it is in there that we're doing something, I thought, in 2027, so that's where that.
We've got a more
That's the
immediate,
deadline.
we've got a more immediate consent matter, don't we?
And that's
27.
you're correct, Mr. Chair, and that's in place.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're going to spend the money to get the consent to give us the options. And where it sits in the budget, Your Worship, might be where the actual spend is, but there would be a lot of work to be done before that is incurred. And you would obviously have your decision point earlier than that, depending on the circumstances of the environment.
So do you have a date in mind when is the decision on Mount Killy? Because I thought it was 227.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, one of the things we're waiting for from Mount Killy is the resource consent. So we will not know the final costs of constructing our new cells and those options for Mount Killy until we can get the resource consent nailed down. We've been advised by the regional council it will be a limited notification process, not a full public notification process. And once that's completed, then hopefully by the middle of the year, we'll have the Mount Killy consent conditions and finalise those costs, and then that will be where we can bring it back to council.
Cheers. It's a big
Right. Shall we go to item 3 on the agenda, page 32, conflicts of interest. Register Sharon is going to speak briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is just a report for information that as part of our work plan, we bring to you every 6 months. And it's very small on my page.
It's hard to read.
It's really hard to read. And so it's just a reminder, if you haven't done it, please do. And we'll be sending the same reminder out to the community as well.
Can I just check, please, Mr. Chair, did we vote for the recommendation on item 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't have to have those, no?
And so can I move it to receive the Thank you, Bruce. Seconded Gaynor. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. And that takes us to the work program report on page 37. And that's looking good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so there was a red star in it still when it came out to you guys because we didn't have the Deloitte engagement letter at that point. We have since received that and I've forwarded it to the chair to have a look through, and he's going to have a look through that and make any comments, and we'll talk to audit, and then it'll be brought to you guys at the next council meeting.
So, moving sorry,
A
Bruce?
question
Yes.
there on page 38. We've got the reporting dates here, looking down about third of the way down at least. Protozoa and bacterial monitoring report. There's no further stars by that. I just wonder if that still seems to be, that should still be coming to the risk and assurance. Page 38.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that was a question today for when it comes up, if you want it to keep coming each time. That was a new item last time, the bacterial and protozoal monitoring, so I guess you can answer that now. Do you want it in every second meeting? Do you want it every meeting?
It's in this meeting.
Yeah, it's in this meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, and, or would you like to see it every 6 months?
I think at least if it's reasonably easy to produce, I'd be happy to see it.
Can we come back to that when we're looking at the report? Yeah. And then you can retrospect. Yeah. I've forgotten now. Did I move this? I did. Is Bruce again? No. Not this one? No? Sorry.
I'm happy to move though.
Thank you, John. And seconded, Ken. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, that takes us to page 39, the annual plan performance monitoring report. Welcome, Trey.
Kia ora, everybody. I'm happy to take the management accounts as read and answer any questions.
Oh, sorry, John.
So, thank you, Trey. So there's 3 wastewater infringement notices. What happens with that? What's the long-term effect of that? Are we looking at, is Jules or Linda able to answer that?
Speak to that. So we've got those 3 infringements. They all relate to consent breaches. They're not issued wastewater released waterways. They're all for high nitrate levels. And we've got improvement plans or programs underway, capital improvement works underway at all of those sites. So we're expecting to see these results over the next 6 months.
It says there they're going to waterways though, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes, that's not correct.
Ah, right.
Sorry, that's not correct.
I'll take my big red cross off.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be a major red flag.
Yeah,
So
that's why I had red
they're
cross.
for high nitrate levels, and a part of the capital improvement plans that are underway at all our wastewater plants.
Can I just check, Linda, because I did have how come that happened. So at this time of the year, we're in awfully dry period. Is it this time of the year that we would expect high nitrate levels? Just run off. Not much water around to dissolve.
It's different for different locations. So in the winter, it can be difficult to get the nitrogen levels down because of the cold temperatures.
Yeah.
But in the summer, the likes of Kakapoi has an influx of people. So there's different issues depending on the treatment and the site. But this is based as a result of our systems not being able to get it down to the level they need to.
So, because just flowing onto this, when we get to the red and the green and the orange grass, is there times of the year that we have to change it up? Do we know, in February, it's gonna be dry, therefore the nitrate levels are like you say, is there times where we're really gonna focus on it to try and get those red boxes off?
Well, that's part of the capital upgrades, and for example, here it's been very successful at getting the nitrogen levels down very, very low, and that's really pleasing. However, there is a risk that may not be as effective when we get into the winter. So, but we have a lot of headroom based on the results we've had recently. But yeah, it's the designs have been upgraded. The upgrades, sorry, have been designed to achieve compliance, but we do have to monitor and make sure they're being operated properly in order to do that. And that's going to be part of the operations team to keep.
So it's not a seasonal thing that we can lift that game up.
Well, we suspect it will be harder in the winter, and the designs have taken that into account to try and achieve that. In the past, we've had issues with the Kaitangata pond during the winter, for example. We've got more aeration, we've upgraded that to try and avoid that problem in the future. And I think last year it wasn't quite so bad, but we'll know once we can start to get into the winter on some of those sites.
Excellent, thank you.
Just a question about the point below the one that John raised, the time taken to reach the stormwater problem. Is there is there an explanation for that?
That one's a specific case. I've had a look into it, and it's a bit confusing with how it's been reported on. So yeah, it seems to be that someone took 51 days to turn up to that. I can look into that further for you and give you an explanation, but just off the brief check I've had, it's for whatever reason it's taken someone 51 days to be there. But I can talk directly to the person that entered that into the system to find out what's happened there.
I presume it hasn't been critical at all this time, whether we've had anyway.
Right. On page 43, Trey, it's got contributions relating to the Milton to Waihola pipeline have not been received, 36K and 348. Who are we getting them from, and how come we haven't received them? Is that users?
So through you, Your Worship, we when we originally did the budget, we were talking to the developer and other options for that. Unfortunately, the timing is meaning that those developments and the use aren't going to match what we originally expected, so we're going to have to loan fund that cost until the time that they want to connect. Again, we do need to talk to the developers and try and get them to nail down when they may need that water, because we've made provision for that through the Melbourne development area.
You know how if I presume who we're talking about, there was sort of the firefighting capacity, whatever, they could go, it's there and we don't really need it, so we'll just pay for it in 20 years' time when we have a fire.
Oh, absolutely, but the part of those ones were also dependent on the Melbourne development area needing that, whereas that's uncertain as to when that is going to be required.
So we are going to, this date, you pay.
Well, no, we have to work with the developer in terms of when they're going to need that, and that would be part of the discussions. And part of the contribution we need to get back from them is to fund what we've put into that pipeline.
They were the ones putting a fair bit of heat on us to do it.
Yeah, well, no, the PAMPAC that you have talked about, they've got their own system. They are interested in the connection, but it won't be for firefighting capacity. Because they've done their own thing and put a large fire reservoir in now that they needed to do because we didn't have the water available for them at the time.
Simon.
Yeah, through the chair, page 41, I often bang away on the financial statement, but just currently we're looking at an actual deficit over budget of 2.3 million, and that's a reversal there of minus 7 million since the start of the year. I still struggle as to why we can't have actual plus budget forecast in the statement to get it we're expecting the final deficit to sit. All this is going to have to be debt funded, of course. it's quite critical now with the level of debt, that we should have an idea of where that deficit is going to sit on our compared to budget at the end of the financial year. I think I talked to Sharon, I think it's a software issue, isn't it? But I personally, I don't understand it. I mean, our farm budgeting software, one click, I can show you where our loss, sheep farming loss is going to be this year. I don't understand why it can't be there for a council.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's one of the things as you know, one of the Category A projects is an ERP upgrade. So we're moving to a new version of the software we had, and it's one of the things we're dealing with through that process. So that is ultimately the plan, and don't get me wrong, I would love it too, because it would help with my cash flow and when I'm going to need money and all that sort of stuff.
Is there not some simple, cheap software that you could use and just plug these numbers in once a month? Fire the number out, or some estimates even. Because on that trend, if we've run -7 million for the year, we're probably looking at that 7 months. We're probably looking at, if that trend continues, probably -10, 11 million, or a deficit of -5. So
We can create something not software based in an Excel spreadsheet. Have a go at that. It'll involve a lot of people, but yeah.
yeah, it just seems to be more. If we had no debt, probably not such a biggie. But when you've suddenly got 100 million of debt and rising.
And with that, I'd like to see the financial strategy graphs because they show that forecast pushing out through future years, and that's a big deal with debt. Now, I've talked to Sharon about that before too. But it's all about, it's been a challenging year for a whole lot of reasons.
And you've got to remember, Mr. Chairman, that when we talk about forecasting, we just discussed forecasting, is that we had to, no system would have necessarily calculated what the forecast deficit will be when we were describing taking on the Three Waters activity, where we needed to wait to see what was going to be what was going to be the operational deficits versus the transition deficit, right? The transition deficit only occurs once, and that has a big impact. How much of that was the transition deficit? And we need to determine what is the ongoing operational, once that's settled down, what is the operational costs that are not budgeted for, which will be deficits, right?
Yeah.
And that was and we produced a report in February, I think it was our first go. It says, hey, here's that. I'm not sure whether we distinguish between transition costs and operation costs for it, but that would make up one of the key reasons why they haven't calculated anything yet, is because you need to know what those fixed costs were versus what was the operating cost to then come to the conclusion. But you're right, once that's nailed down, and we're almost at the end of it now, but you should have been able to, we should be able to calculate what that deficit is.
Yeah, because it means you're upgrading those budgets every month to include the changes, because at the moment we're having to vote on, as a councillor, we're voting on a lot of decisions, but some of them, if we knew that information, perhaps the votes might go another way.
Yeah, but the first time we could provide you the information
in
any sense was the report we gave after Feb, because it was an unknown, and nobody likes to use the word blank check, but it was effectively an unknown cost of bringing in the Three Waters.
Yeah, I understand that. It's just not having that. It's not shifting that. We should have an actual plus an updated budget. It should be in this thing to give us a look at where we are going to end the year.
And hopefully, through you, Mr. Chairman, the new system that's coming in, we should be able to bring in to play those types of budgeting techniques. The system we're currently using and what we're demonstrating here doesn't have that functionality.
And I won't ask the question again for several months.
No, I think, Simon, it's a good question, and actually your statement that if I knew what the financial position was, I may have voted differently comes back to where we are on the LTP, that we've got to be determined that no projects on or off the table. Because the decisions we made were not able to reflect the true financial position we're in, and consequently, that's the rigour of the LTP. But fair question, I think, good question.
I'll leave it until we stop here, I'll ask the same question.
How far away is the software? Next question.
All right, anything else on the monitoring report?
Maybe I think I will just make one comment, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate, and pick up both councillors' comments and Mayor's comments, is about the financial information, because it is relevant. I mean, what we highlighted, we said that we cannot calculate the cost of the Three Waters transition. Right? We didn't know what it was going to cost us, but we believed there was no other solution to the situation we were in other than to end that contract and bring it in-house. And that there was going to be costs associated with that we couldn't unfortunately calculate. And that's not good from a budgeting perspective, but it was one of those risks that we identified and we needed to accept for it. And I'll also say that as we've gone ahead with the transition, we've changed the structure and that to, we brought in a compliance activity that was never been in there before. Daniel's whole team is a brand new team. We brought in a planned maintenance activity that was never there before. It's a whole new team. We brought a minor capital projects outfit in there to do minor capital works that weren't being done. It was never there before. And then obviously we've doubled or tripled the number of operators that we have had. The consequence are, and always were, that there was going to be significant cost to that, in addition to got to bring in the vehicle fleet, got to do all these things which are actual debt costs because they're assets, and that doesn't help with cash flow, it's on the books. So, and we didn't know what the ongoing costs were going to be, right? And so when people say, hey, if I'd known this or did that, well, we didn't know that, and we said we didn't know that, but we didn't have a choice but to bring it on board. So we will hold ourselves to account once we know, like, here is the normal operating mode, and we will hold ourselves to account budget-wise for the normal operating mode, and you should expect rigour to that, but we have not been in a normal operating mode to be able to present you those sort of figures at a time, unfortunately, when you are making calls on budgets and bits and pieces.
I think there should also be a clarification from this, so we're fully supportive and fully aware of the situation. The only thing is there is a difference in this LTP for you, there is for us, and the fact that in previous years you decided at a workshop, so therefore it's happening. What we're saying is what we've decided is an indication, but if we have to change our mind in light of the wider financial position, so we're working on, we appreciate where you are, but from a political position, no projects on or off the table.
All right, page 40 is the resolution, is the recommendation that we received the report. Thank you, Michelle. Seconded. John, thank you. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you, Trey. Which takes us to the protozoa and bacterial compliance report on page 55. And sorry, Linda and Daniel. Hello, Daniel.
I'm just here to introduce Daniel to the committee. Daniel Pickup started only a month ago. He's walked into a bit of a storm of things. We've had audits and all sorts, but he's here to present the report to you today.
And perhaps, Daniel, you could give us, the committee, a little bit of an introduction to your background.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Daniel Pickup. Prior to coming to Clutha District Council, I've worked in public health as a drinking water assessor with Taumata Owai as the water regulator for Taumata Southland. And finally, I was designing water supplies and water systems for a company called White International across New Zealand and Australia.
Welcome.
At our last meeting, we spent some time going through this. So it's, what I'm really interested in is a conversation around risk at this meeting, at the last meeting.
Excuse me, can I just welcome
Oh.
Daniel? I'm not sure if he recognises
Hello,
you.
Mrs. Logan.
Well, I just had to say, it's really nice. I watched Daniel go through primary school, high school, and when I saw your name coming onto staff, I was really excited. So welcome aboard, Daniel, and good luck. Nice to see you.
Thank you. It's a recognisable last name if you live in this region.
I guess it is. but good
In
to
your
see you.
resume, you forgot to say Rosebank Primary School too, didn't you?
All yours.
Okay, so I'm presenting a report and taking it as being read. So, any questions?
So my question's around risk. We've got lots of colour in here. But you know, I go right the way down to the notes at the bottom where it talks about compliance January to February, page 62. And it talks about an incident at Admar Flat where analysis on the 20th of December found an anomaly, and that led to a notice going out on the 4th of January. So I'm sitting there thinking there's quite a lot of time, and the level of risk can't be that great if we're not reacting immediately to it. And so I'm just trying to get a handle on what our risks are, because that's the purpose of this committee, rather than what our progress is.
So in that case, for aluminium, it takes time for those results to come through. So while it would have been sampled on that day, those results take quite some time to come from the laboratory.
Yeah.
That's why that would have been, a, excuse me, there would have been a delay in that result being taken, and that sample being taken, and the result being, the notification going out.
Yeah. So what's the risk to people during that time period? It is obviously not so urgent that you'd shut the system down, or that the people doing the testing have a higher priority, all of that sort of thing.
So in the advisories that we put out, we do say that the risk to health from aluminium is considered to be quite low.
Yeah.
So it's tough to give an actual analysis of that risk myself, but I would say that the risk to people during that time would be low.
Yeah. And so a lot of these red flags we're seeing here are more compliance risk rather than health and safety risk.
I think you might be just checking what you're getting confused over, Mr. Chairman. The item that you mentioned before related to aluminium.
Yes.
The charts relate to different types of things, right? So I wouldn't think they're totally different.
Yeah, I'm getting mixed
So
up.
there's
You're right.
high risk with some of these others.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so for these other tables, they are more of an immediate risk. They are a period of days, where something like aluminium is a long-term attitude, as opposed to
Right. Thank you.
what these tables are about, which is short.
So the level of risk on these other tables?
These are high.
High. And so we're saying, given the large number of red flags here, major problem.
Yes, it can be. But with some of these that do have red on them, we have boil water notices in place to help mitigate those.
This is those mitigations. I note that one of them on page 58, Milton, is called a technical non-compliance.
Yes, well, if you can't
I take it that's not serious to a person.
No, if you can't provide the data,
Yeah.
then that is a non-compliance against the rules.
Yeah.
So while the treatment may be working properly, if
Yeah.
you don't have the data to prove that it is,
Yeah.
then you're non-compliant with the rules.
I get a feeling that we should be separating that into a different colour from something that is of greater risk to people.
Mr. Chairman, the issue might be, I mean, the Tamara Arawai and others would be, clear with us that if you if you can't record or measure something, or you don't know the period, for a period of time of what you're measuring, then you can't conclude that you're providing safe water. So I think that the risk would be, to apply an approach that says, let's separate it to a lower level of significance on that basis. I think we just have to address what the rules are, because that's the rules. And we're talking about compliance. Are we compliant or not?
Right, that's me. Brian?
Thank you for that, and welcome to the team, Daniel. Great to see you. Just a pedantic thing on page 60. You see the red one? It's got as above, but as above was a one compliance missed, and the red one, I'm just saying that. So, from a risk profile, I want to make it clear to the councillors I'm worried from a risk. So, we've been spending money. You look at the debt, we're up over 90 million at the moment, and we've still got a heap of red. We get rid of the red when we spend more money, and yet it's showing in our 10-year budgets that when we spend the money to get rid of the red, it's the communities that go into the red and go bankrupt. And I really question the true risk is, are we going to be able to do it? I just want to make aware to you, we've been ushered, I think it's next week, to a meeting with Te Mata Arawa to speak with the Big Cheese Pragnell. I don't think it's because he wants to know how much karaoke lessons are coming on or anything. And I keep looking at this and the cumulative effect of the reds and our ability to get rid of them with the regulator on our tail. There's a risk. There's a huge risk. And when the regulator says get to and see us, there's things like we're still getting aluminium ones coming through, and they said, well, we'll let you away with it because it's not long term. It's been about a year now. It's that long term. You keep getting red. So I just don't know what we're going to run out of first, the regulator's latitude or our money. But we're in a real corner of risk, team. A real corner.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I acknowledge that the number of reds does not look good. None of us are proud of that as a scorecard. A number of those reds, once Greenfields comes online, will obviously go. So some of those plants someone has made a conscious decision that we won't upgrade them, so they will never be compliant until a bulldozer goes through them. So wait again, mate.
Yeah. I'll let you carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's a bad picture, and in some cases that picture will not improve between now and when Greenfields goes.
Yep, and we know that and we accept it. It's just if the regulator doesn't, the risk profile changes.
Michelle's first, then Simon.
That sort of probably answered part of my question for you, Chair. So Greenfield, sort of roughly, we're talking at the end of this year, hoping, fingers crossed.
That's what I'm saying, this year.
Project team. Yeah, because that will eliminate a lot of those reds, hopefully. And the UV treatment that's needed for Tapano has been ordered. That's all that's going to fix that red squeak. Thank you.
Simon?
Once it's commissioned, it should
Yes, through the chair, Linda, just in counter to the Greenfield one, there's 3 plants. In Kinnock is under a year old. It's failing. And then the 2 other rural ones, Mar Flat and North Bruce, are also non-compliant. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Understood. So Mar Flat and North Bruce are both, we have our water process engineer that we're working with. Mar Flat, so we've got a plan, which is a change of dosing methodology, largely. Mar Flat seems to be showing better results from that change, and we are thinking that will probably be the next boil water notice that's lifted. We just need to prove. Well, you heard it here, but it's about proving consistency with results. And so that's the one we're working on. The same focus is going into North Bruce, but it's different source water and it is different outcomes. So we just have to keep changing what we're doing in terms of dosing.
Can we get Greenfield, like Glenkinnock isn't running well after nearly a year in, are we gonna be able to get Greenfield to go being from the start?
It's a good water source, so we would hope that it's coming out of the ground. Light treatment required, is what I'm told. So we're expecting better outcome.
So with your tweakings at the different plants, I know you won't have any idea, but what happens if those tweakings don't work within the next few months?
Then we'd be looking to see whether we need to have different equipment.
Are we expecting a summer winter impact? Is that
The source water probably doesn't change that
Doesn't-
much.
doesn't change,
Jules, you're
okay.
probably across that better than I am.
And part of the problem with some of our source water is it doesn't actually have enough solids in it to make it easy to treat. There's nothing for the colour and everything to stick to. So sometimes you get higher rainfall events, it's actually easier to treat the water. So yeah, we'll wait and see. But both North Bruce and Moa Flat have significant raw water, well, Moa Flat particularly raw water storage. So shouldn't be changing too much with the rainfall. But North Bruce definitely will. It's only got a short, about a 10-day storage. So yeah, it can make it easier to treat when we do have more rainfall, more solids.
So that 10-day storage is going to be addressed, isn't it?
No, that's the raw water reservoir, Councillor Finch. So that's not changing. It's been fenced and tidied up, but there's no proposal to change the volume.
John?
I'd be remiss if I didn't say something. Welcome, Daniel. Nice to see a good haircut up there. And look, my comment sort of carries on a bit from what Mr. McAtending said. It's sort of, I suppose my confidence is not as high as it should be. And we've just heard from the CE about the amount of, new groups and new staff and new people we've all got, and we're still seeing this. And yes, we're 8 or 9 months in or whatever it is, but, for credibility and the increase that these people are going to have in their next rates bill with water, and we're still seeing red, those two things are going to have to line up a bit better. Like, if we're going to be delivering boil water notices to people that have got a 30, 40, 50% increase in their rates, there's going to be some big questions get asked of us and of the team. 100% still support you. And I'd be really interested, Daniel, when you first opened some books and had a look at this from your experience in Tamata Arawai, how easy is it? And I know we've got a lot of plants and they're all different and they're all placed around the show. Can I open this one day and see all green? And how long away is that? Two really good questions.
The first one, I would like to say yes. The second one, I would say I have no idea.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to put a time frame on it that we can't meet. That would be unfair to the team and to the operations team and everyone involved. But knowing that I have, when I started, I was looking at Clutha District Council quite often and quite regularly, because a lot of information was coming through to us and a lot of notifications about problems within Clutha's water. It's a long journey for this council to improve. And I think that we are making some good improvement with what's been brought in, bringing it in-house will make a difference, better control over what's happening. But it is going to be a long journey.
Just in defence of some of the committees, I think their appetite to spend money to hope something works is starting to drop. They want guarantees. A lot of these people have spent $3, $4, $5 million on treatment plants and it's still not compliant, and that's their appetite for gambling isn't really there. So it needs, I suppose the message is we need to be making sure we're getting this sorted on the way through going forward. Thank you.
Bruce?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just in reply to what a learned colleague on my right says, and having a history in diagnostics, it's to work something out, you've actually got to isolate one part of it, have a control, and test it till it's right. And if you might have 20 things that you've got to go through, not necessarily you can solve it with $10 in the first day. You might be lucky that it happens. It might take a year and a lot of money. So I think you guys are doing the best you can.
Can I just respond to that? Because we're talking about the treatment plants that were designed by engineers that we've paid for, start separating them off now and seeing which one's not working. That should have been sorted 5 years ago.
Right, we're not going to argue about that. Dana?
So my question is, how much do you think money we are going to have to keep throwing at this to get everything that is compliant? I know that's a really hard question to answer, but we've been throwing a lot around. You know, like, when's it going to come that it is enough?
Yes, that's a great question. I wouldn't want to answer it on the spot without.
Yeah, no, I can understand that, but it is just really frustrating getting nowhere when there's so much being thrown at it.
Yes, so Kaka Point, which is in South, came off. So Kaka Point was lifted in January, which is our most recent.
Is that one of the long standing?
It was a long-standing one, yes, almost a year.
Brent?
Thank you through the chair. I look at Clinton and there seems to be very few problems are happening on the Clinton water scheme. Now, is that because it's tested under a different regime or is it just that it's coming from Clydevale, I know. But there's very few boil water notices or anything like that. You know, so why is that?
You're lucky.
Because I know we don't have fluoridation as well now, you know, which doesn't worry me. So, but I'm just curious, and probably another part of that question is, do you think the whole the expectations that this organisation has put for water, do you think they're too high? And perhaps there needs to be some pushback from councils on it.
The expectations, no, because the whole goal of what Taumata Aroa was set up for was to raise the quality of water that we're receiving in this country. So therefore, to do that, there needs to be investment and work done on it to improve the water that people are drinking. So in that case, though, the responsibility falls on the water suppliers to be able to provide that safe water to the people that they serve.
But the knee-jerk reaction that we do now is, oh, this water's got this come up, so we just put a boil water notice on. And we know for a fact that most people out there now, they know the water's completely drinkable still, and they continue drinking it.
And we're
I just think it's nonsense. I think it's a nonsense.
Well, obviously, through Chairman, we're not accountable for. You know,
but that goes back to this outfit. They've set these rules that are bankrupting councils.
Well, it's not our position to question that, councillor. Our job's to do what we're supposed to be doing in accordance with the regulations, and that's what we're trying to do.
Bruce?
Just a question I know through Mr. Chairman, just with regard to the Milton water treatment plant, I see we were non-compliant, well, we were compliant for 29 out of 31 days. That we also fed the Otago Corrections Facility as well. Are we required to, if we have a non-compliant result, are we required to contact them? Or is there discussions or there consequences for us and what they...
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we certainly keep them informed. So when there are things that are happening at the plant or that may have an impact on their supply, we have, you know, they're a high priority customer and they pay for the privilege of that, and we keep them informed. We have a monthly meeting also with OCF, with their staff about water in general, and overall we're really happy.
Michelle?
I'm quite happy to move the report.
Move that we receive the report. Second it. Thank you, Gaynor. Before we put the motion, how often do you feel we need to receive this report? Bruce?
That's a good report.
At the moment, it's useful, but there's also a more comprehensive report in the infrastructure committee too. But I think it's good to keep this at our forefront.
And understand where the risks lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where that's, yep. Cool, okay.
Definitely.
So we'll receive the report then. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, do you want us to change the colour for anything that's a technical non-compliance?
I think we can work with it as a team and come up with a conclusion on that?
I think in the report that's presented in the infrastructure and strategy agenda, that you are using a different colour there, so that's might as well be consistent.
Okay.
Do that, yes.
Can I just suggest, if we look at it through the regulator's eyes, they're not gonna look at it in different colours, black and white or red and black. And consequently, from a risk profile, the risk to me is that that's the game. If the risk is, if our regulator sees the red and they go red, so it's the orange is good for us in that other report, but for this, for risk, if the risk is either there or it's not there, and it is there when it's red.
Staff have heard a couple of versions of this. They can go away and work it out, and we're going to focus on the next item on the agenda.
I can just say this report is for us, not for
And so the audit recommendations monitoring report, Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just got one comment here. I said that nothing has happened since the last meeting, but that's not true. We've heard back from the bank about the number of signatories, and we're working through what to do there. Because they're saying, yes, we can fix it, but you need more people. And audit's saying less people and less authorisers, so we're just going to try and work through what that all means. Other than that, I'll take this through.
John.
Who do we bank with?
Westpac.
The government's banker. This must be a whole of government problem. I'm a bit mystified how we stand out alone on this. Right, no other questions we'll receive.
They're happy to move the
Bruce,
recommendation.
Bruce, seconded, Ken, those in favour, those
Aye.
against, carried. That takes us to, the treasury report, and Greg's here, yes, there he is. Nico has done some wonderful things for us. And me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we've had a couple of results in January and February. 501k unrealised gain in January and 477k unrealised gain in February. So we had January just had the quarterly management fees of 31k deducted. So that's brought us up to cumulative 11.43% year to date. So yes, similar result. In terms of the borrowings, no change since last time, 98.8 million. We did have a 11.5 million rollover in February, which would reissue for around 3 months. Yeah. Let's read. Some questions.
Emerging issues, cash flow and monitoring debt limits is an emerging issue. You want to expand on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's just because we're aware that we've got some big costs coming up and we're having to try to pay them. And so it's an issue for us. We have a window out in our office with these lines drawn across it, all the contracts and payments down the side, mapping it out, kind of like what Simon should come and have a look at that. But it doesn't give you the bottom line, but it's trying to work out to the end of the year where our cash is coming from and when, to make sure that we can get through to the end of June. So it stays on there so that, because it's forefront in our mind that we need to work out how we're paying for what we're paying for and when we're paying for it.
Yes, and so that's through Mr. Chairman, that's obviously the outcome of the deficit situation where, you have a budgeted amount and you're rating for that budgeted amount, but you're spending above the budgeted amount. So your cash in does not match your cash out. So the only way you can do that is by obtaining additional cash, and that's through debt. And so that's the monitoring. The monitoring bit there is that as we are obtaining the debt, we're getting closer and closer to to breaching the debt to revenue ratio for our GFA, and that's what we're keeping a close eye on. But Council has also recently approved the obtaining of the credit rating with the intention that it's received before June the 30th. And so that's important for two reasons. One, we're not going to get through our LTP audit without a credit rating. And secondly, obviously, we don't want an actual breach on June the 30th that will have major ramifications for us in terms of funding moving forward. And this reminds me, although it might be a bit late, because by the time you have the next one, it'll be over, but when Sharon says emerging risk, which is too late to put in here as show as a risk, it would be a reasonable risk associated with credit rating, and that's a timing risk, because we have to receive it before June.
Why do we have to receive it before June 30th?
Because we run the potential risk, which is why Sharon's looking at it month by month, that we might actually breach the debt limit by June 30th. Because we get protection.
So we've got February instalments coming in, and so that would have helped the situation.
And but we'll be, like July we're fine, because by budget the revenue goes up as a result of whatever the LTP is.
It's the actual revenue, not the budgeted revenue.
Yes, when they determine it.
Yeah,
At the end of the year.
So the actual revenue is not going to come in until August, first instalment.
But you don't want to be.
They check it once a year, and it'll be when we do our annual report. But the fact that we
Who checks it once a year? LGFA. So it's a one point in time. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you never want to be in that situation where you have breached it, because then the flow of money will be changed.
Yeah, okay, that's different. I've never got this close to it to check the rules. My instinct was that it was any point.
No, we've followed that up, and we're clear about that.
Okay, Brian?
Good question. So,
Bruce?
as we go real near to the breach, what is the amount of money that the potential to breach? And is it less than the amount of money we've got sitting in the interest earned on the investment, so that instead of breaching and going over it, we take the money out the investment and just get through that month? Is it in those realms, or is it more than that $2 million or whatever that we have floating around?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's net debt, so we take the money
and
we
it pays
borrowed and
forward.
take off our investment anyway, so there's no benefit.
So we can't. So the next one, because that is the most imminent of risks that we've got. What's the chances? What are we tracking at?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's why we have the board and we're keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, but we're off to the casino. Is it a 50-50 chance we're going to breach? Is it a 5% chance we're going to breach?
We're monitoring it so closely because the intention is to not get to that point.
It gets resolved, Mr. Chairman, when we get the credit rating. So the moment we get a credit rating, we can go up to 200%.
But that's not guaranteed or known for the date.
No, but we in Fitch is aware of the timeframe, and they have the intention that we will receive it before June the 30th. That's what we're banking on. We are banking on, because it's a high risk thing. So that's very important that we do receive it. Once we receive it, it will impact. As a result, we will be that will cover us for the June 30th.
I had this experience where didn't have proper cash flow reporting happening in this council, and so we sent someone out to ask everyone, because we're running short on cash, and we're at the contractor borrowing limit, not this LGFA thing, before this was introduced. And we sent information out to the business, so tell us what you're going to spend between now and December, 6 or 8 week period. And we got some numbers back, and I said, sweet, we're okay. And then the bill came in for roading. Instead of it being 250,000, it was 500,000. I said, well, we don't have another 250,000 to pay it. I said, you've got a choice. I'm going to pay the roading am I going to pay the roading contract or pay the staff? Because there is no more money. And so that was an experience that that I've had, and what I'm hearing from these guys is they've got to monitor, they've got to make sure the whole business is aware and that someone doesn't go and commit the business to something because they've got a budget once upon a time. And that's what I'm hearing. It's the right thing we should be hearing.
So just before I go to this one, that in my mind, if you apply for something, then you can get turned down. And the risk we have, the most imminent risk is what if we don't get the credit rating? That's a huge risk. But I was looking at this on page 76 and starting to think of those questions that have been asked of what is the debt broken down into, 5 months on that. And I'm thinking there's only been, say, in the last 6 months, we've drawn down 10 lots of debt. So we've got 10 graphs. I look at, see that higher one there, about 12 million. We must, when we draw down 12 million, okay, we need 12 million because we've got 4 million for 3 waters, 6 million for deficit funding and what have you. And there's the answer. Why isn't it that simple? I just can't work out why we're not drawing down everything. There is blocks that we're drawing down and we know exactly what the amount is. So consequently, we should know, is that of 3 waters, is that of that? And there's the answers that I know Councillor Catherwood is going to be valve bouncing on it today.
Sharon?
Why not that easy?
It is that simple, but there's a whole lot of other factors as well. Like there's money that we should have taken out for NECO for cash flowing, and so we've had to borrow that because we haven't done that yet. But for the investment surplus money, that's got to come out as well. There was money that was decided to come out of there specifically for payment to the hub. There's those things as well, and you've also got your rollover debt kicks in.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, it is as simple as that, but then there's a whole lot of other stuff going on at the bottom.
Could we have a
Can I
non-simplistic?
just clarify something?
Yeah.
You're funding with debt what you need for the business. You're not funding it by activity. Because what I'm hearing from Brian is it's about activity. So how we account for activities and the debt attached to activities is in our internal borrowing. This is about funding the business. No single line here is attached to any single part of the business. You can't say that one of those columns is a sewage treatment plant.
The underlying issue, I think, that from a council perspective is that pretty obviously we've been funding day-to-day operation on debt. We haven't been able to quantify that amount as we're presuming it's 30 odd million. Even if it wasn't sophisticated, even if it wasn't down to the last, so there was 3 million as 3 waters, 6 million as funding of debt on day-to-day operation, and then you got the incidentals. I'm not losing any sleep about incidentals. I just want to know how much we've been funding day-to-day operation by debt.
So the everyday expenditure every day that financial strategy graph is if that's showing a deficit, because that takes out all the non-cash.
Yeah.
If that's showing a deficit, then that's showing the amount that you're funding.
Okay, so can we just add up those 12 figures and tell me what it does?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the other thing we do is like at the end of stuff like that, at this point in time, we don't know the final costs, we haven't raised the loan. So to the end of June, the internal and external debt was only different by about $3 million. And we can put that down to transition costs for water and money we paid to the hub and stuff. We were still on the right side of it at that point if you take those extraordinary things out. So like the end of June this year, when we do that wash up, it'll be easier to do it by activity for you and show you where those things are. But until we do the end of year stuff and raise the internal loans, it's real hard to pinpoint the activity.
Could we 95% pinpoint it? And have incidentals?
I've got Bruce first, and then Simon. Bruce? Still with me?
Oh,
Put your
sorry,
hand up
this
a while
Bruce,
ago.
yeah. Look, just a question on upcoming the LGFA rates. Are they moving at the moment to future borrowing?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually not sure of that, I'm sorry. I'll find out though.
That one. You did. No, particularly for the different rates for different periods has come up. So we probably
they also depend based on the advice of how we get told to borrow at a point in time. Because we always say, we need this much money, please tell us how to best do it to get the best bang for our buck and stay within our strategy graph.
This is Miles,
Yes.
not LGF.
Yes, this is Miles O'Connor from Bancorp. He'll say, do it for 30 days, do it for 3 months, do it for, to get the best, what they're predicting is going to happen in the future, stuff like that.
Simon?
Yes, through the chair. I probably disagree a wee bit with the mayor around trying to break that debt down. I understand how complicated it is from the cash flow side of it, but I wonder, if I go back to that original statement where I was talking about whether we should have a bit more data on what projects have cost to date. Some of these big water things, and that should, because if I go back to page 41 on that report way back, in the expenditure we have, the biggest item there is other operating expenditure, and so far we're sitting at 14 million. Now, perhaps that should be broken down. That would give an idea of where the money is being spent, rather, because that debt as you borrow, it's got to go right through the whole business, as you say, as and when you need it. Yeah, maybe a bit more detail there would just clarify as to where we're tracking.
So I'm not hearing a question there. You're just making a statement?
Well, maybe a request that in the expenditure on our way back in the report, page 41, that we see a bigger breakdown.
Yep.
And that would give us an idea of how we can.
For you, Mr. Chair, that there are comments on that on
G,
page 43.
Yeah.
And those costs are all operational ones. But we can certainly break that down more. We certainly can and put it.
Yeah.
Some of that you can actually put into area. You can say it's water.
Yeah.
Parks. You can actually, some of that you can do. But you mentioned project as well.
Yeah, and the capital, you're probably operating in capital expenditure to date for the year. Yeah. And then the debt should wherever it goes.
Quick question for you, Mr. Chair. On page 75, Sharon, the first one that's about to drop off is 0.74%. That's obviously an old historic one that was taken out when, I'll see about the sixth one down to about the same. So they're not a mistake, they're just, that was what the interest rate was at the time. Yeah, it was a long time ago now, isn't it?
No.
Well,
so, yeah, I like these slides, but the graph, but the strategy and how we manage our strategy on the choices we make around the term and the interest rates. It's sort of like, I feel as, Miles was walking in here telling us how we were the cheapest debt in the country 3 years ago. And then look at all this debt we've got sitting up there now at 6%. And why don't we we've got 2 left. Why don't we have more going out of the future? And part of it, we borrowed a lot less back then as part of that story. But, it's really interesting out on the right-hand side there. There's a whole group that are lesser borrowings. So, what is our strategy for our next borrowing?
I asked that at the last meeting, and we talked about the dashboard, the graph, and it was all there. I asked that exact question.
The strategy itself?
Yeah, I asked that in the last risk insurance meeting. That very question. When one drops off, what's their plan for going forward? Now it's being that if you go back to our dashboard and those 2 lines, and the decisions are made with working in amongst there.
Yeah, you've got to be within the lines, but the gap between the lines is quite large. I apologies because I skipped that part of the meeting, unfortunately. Okay, that's me done. I'm told off. Bruce?
I think possibly we needed to re-examine our strategy at the time when interest rates were so low. We had the opportunity to borrow more and for longer and just get rid of our internal loans and such like, but we seem to have strategies.
So is the strategy, should the strategy be that we go shorter now rather than longer? If we think, I mean, we're never going to predict it correctly, but it's.
We can predict it.
We're gonna be, and for new councillors, you know, it's good to sit and look at it now. But absolutely no way back at that time would we have taken on debt just for a better future.
Oh, no, I'm not suggesting that.
So it's frustrating to see them dropping off, but that's the reality, and we'll pick them up. We take the debt on when we need the debt, and we don't dictate what the interest rate is, so. Yeah, it's sort of like the 1977 forestry account.
What we do dictate is how long that interest. Because we've got money going out here. On one of these graphs, it's got the years at the bottom.
So you're saying?
So we've got money going out to 2029 here, so we're.
So you're saying if we're predicting the interest rates are gonna drop, we should be doing short-term ones now so that they only last for a year or so, and then we can pick up cheaper ones?
Well, it comes down to what our strategy with the swaps is as well.
Yeah.
And you don't see
I
that.
presume Miles would have been.
So it's a little bit more complicated than that. But I do think that we it's, you know, it's a risk decision as to which way you go. You know, as elected members, are you close enough to it? Staff taking too much risk themselves, and that sort of thing. We've just got to get that balance right, because there's a productivity issue of withholding things as well, instead of just making the decisions when they need to be made. Anyhow, stop looking at the crystal ball. And, Bruce?
Happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Bruce. Seconded, Michelle. Those in favour? Carried. That takes us to reasons to go into public excluded, page 80. So what we're going to move is we're going to not pull, we're not going to go into public excluded, we're just going to adopt the minutes. And to do that, we're going to recommend the recommendations of 1, 2 and 3 and not recommendation 4 on page 80. Is that right? Yes?
Happy to move still.
Moved, Brian, seconded. No one? John? Those in favour? Against, carried. So the minutes have now been distributed from that meeting and handed out. Mover and seconder. Yeah. So thank you, Ken. Just need the one? Yeah. Oh, it takes all. Oh, sorry, it's already done. We already did it. With that, I can close the meeting.
This your last meeting, Steve?
My second last meeting.
Oh, well, we don't need to shout.
No, he hasn't.